Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, From Race to Recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm great. Kenny, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. We have back with us Abby Groeneweg.
Back by popular demand.
Back by Top Demand.
Thank
That's
you.
me.
Yay. Thanks for coming.
Abby is the operations manager for Burn Boot Camp.
That is correct.
Now, you were here last November, and we were talking about 75 Hard, and you were talking about challenges you were facing, and it was one of our most popular programs because you were really speaking truth to words about how you wanted to make sure to make a change in your life and wanted to just do something that was going to be uncomfortable and outside of yourself. And then at the end of the program, we asked a quick little question on what are you going to do next? And you had a thought in your head, this little idea, a nugget, a kernel, and you knew, gosh, do I want to say this? And there was a pause. And you were asking yourself, do I want to say this out loud? Because if I say it out loud, it becomes real. If I say it out loud, other people are going to hear that, and they're going to start asking me questions about it. What is the thing that you said?
That I would do a triathlon.
And what did you do?
I did the dang thing.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
We have another
Yes, you
triathlete
did.
in the house.
Triathlete in the house. So,
This also means I get to blame you two for this
totally.
obsession now.
absolutely.
And you knew if you said it, we were going to hold you to
Exactly.
it. For
Correct,
sure.
yes.
So I know there was a pause. You're like, do I say it? Do I say it? Do I say it? And
Yeah.
then you said it out loud, and now you are a triathlete. So after we got off the program, and you decided, oh crap, what did I just do? What was your thought process on sort of, okay, now I'm going to do this? What were you feeling? How did you start your program? And you decided triathlon was a thing to do. What did you start first?
So I will be honest, I said it out loud with you two and then thought in, thought out. But only because I had already signed up for the Disney Princess Half Marathon.
That's right.
And that was my main focus. Like, what I've realized about myself is I want to do all these things, but I put too much pressure on myself. So did the Disney Princess Half. Came back, still was twiddling with the idea of doing a triathlon. And it wasn't till, I think the New Year challenge with Team Claiborne that I finally did an I am statement. It's part of the challenge. And I said, I am a triathlete. And then that very night, I signed up for Team Magic's Music City Tri.
Very good. Very good. So, well, let's back up for a second.
And why did you choose that one?
Yeah.
I had heard a lot of good feedback. One of my members at Franklin is a volunteer for Team Magic, and he had told me a lot about it. Plus, it was local, so my first one I wanted to be able to actually go scope things out beforehand and make sure, like, I fully knew what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
And I did do that. I mean, I went and drove Ellington, knew where the elevations were, kind of scoped out the Cumberland, and kind of made sure I had my bearings going into it.
Yeah. Good. That's the way to do it. If you can do it locally,
Yeah. no
for
kidding.
sure, to be able to see that helps you process and deals with the anxiety. And helps set your training up as well.
So when you were thinking about triathlon, and which part of it was the scary part? Which part was holding you back? Was it the combination of all three things? Was it the swim? Was it I haven't rode a bike in forever? What was all the above?
No, not all the above, which is so awkward because if y'all remember, also on that first podcast, I was like, I hate running.
Yeah.
I'm not a runner. But obviously, training for a half marathon, prior to the half marathon, I did a 15K in Nashville. So I had felt like at that point, like, oh, running's in the bag. Like, it's now my strength out of these three, things. But I really thought biking would be the hardest. Biking is what I was a little scared of. I thought the swimming I could grasp because I did swimming when I was little. I was on a competitive, neighborhood team. But swimming was the hardest thing for me.
So thinking going into it, biking was going to be the thing, but that ended up just being more of relearning how to ride a bike, kind of, right? At
Yeah,
distance.
and just getting myself, I was every other day taking, adding just miles and miles and miles. Obviously, being in the fitness industry, I know you can't just go like hop on a bike and bike 12 miles and you've got it. So I started with 3 or 4 miles one day, and then like 2 days later would add another mile, and I just kept progressing through that. And the biking is what I love the most.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, that warms my heart. So when it came to the swim, you knew it was going to be like, I've done it before. I'm able to do it. You're looking at your watch. I think it was like 5 weeks before the race.
It was 6 weeks before the race. So I got a membership to the Brentwood Indoor Sports Complex, and I had been going like early mornings before burn, swimming a few laps. And I had reached out to my friend Drew, who also is part of the whole you should just do this triathlon. Yeah. And he met me at the pool one day. He was going to try to help me, show me freestyle. And I love Drew. He is amazing PT. But he was like, you just do this. And I was like, okay, but I feel like I'm doing this and I'm not really doing this. Yeah. And I walked away that day, like got in my car and was in tears. And I was like, what the heck have I signed myself up for?
Yeah.
So it was 6 weeks out. I messaged this man to my left. And I was like, Tom, I need your help. I can't do this. Okay. So we met. We did a Zoom, talked for a little bit, and we met at the pool, I think, the very next day.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, like, we had to get on it real quick.
Yeah.
So we met 2 times a week, every week, up until, actually, that Thursday right before the triathlon was our last session.
Okay, so what was the plan for that? I mean, I would assume you don't recommend 6 weeks prior to a race.
No. And let me say that there's very few people that can pull that kind of thing off, right? So I do a swim assessment with everybody first. We go to the pool, and I watch you swim, and I look at it, and then we talk about things that I'm seeing, and then I give you some direction to kind of work on things. How you process that direction and how you go through that tells me our learning curve, like how quickly we can do things, we can go through. Knowing that we had a very short amount of time, you were able to, if I told you to turn your hand like this, you turned your hand like that. I was like, oh, that's interesting, because usually you do a couple of laps and then it's like, figuring it out. But you were like, oh, no, do this. So we broke the stroke down to how you needed to learn, and went from that. And I got to tell you, I wouldn't have taken on anybody to do that if you hadn't been able to focus on those small parts right away. Like that said, okay, we can get here. It might not be pretty, but it's going to get done. And we kind of progressed from that point. And she did the homework. I mean, you did everything that I asked you to do, and we sat there and we just beat it into you.
I am a good student.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's the Thursday before the race. What was your game plan when you?
Back up a little bit before that. Talk about like we got 4 weeks in of two times a week in the pool, and then we went to open water.
Oh yeah.
Because it was like, and that was actually your suggestion that we do it more than once.
Yeah.
Because I do it at least once, and we were able to get in 2 sessions. The weather held up for us; it was perfect.
It was.
What was your reaction when we got in the water and swam that first time out in open water? And it was kind of choppy that day. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't like our second day was great because it was glass. But the first day we had some current, and we had a little bit of chop. What was your?
So Tom got in first, and I was walking behind him, and I was like, ooh. This is cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably about 70 degrees, I think.
Yeah.
Or around 70 degrees.
And I am very much so a Southern girl. You can ask my daddy when we go to his pool. I'm like, is it at least 80? Like, 80 and above is good swimming, temperature. But I feel like at that moment I had the WTF, like, what did I sign myself up for?
Yeah.
And
Suddenly
I think
becomes
you could
real,
see
right?
it in my eyes.
There was a big panic. Behind her goggles, I went, bing.
Well, being in a pool is one thing. When you now look around and there's like ducks and current and wind and, the water's not behaving like there's not a black line below you.
That was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, like, I was joking with my friends on the side because everybody, if you live in Nashville, you know about Percy Priest and Cumberland.
Yeah.
And so I was, like, joking with my friends. I'm like, I see dead people.
Yeah. It's just you got to avoid that.
Yeah. Don't stay close to the shore.
Yeah.
Stay further out.
But it is very different. I feel like, I mean, Tom may say different. I feel like I truly had mastered freestyle swim in the pool. Like, before Tom was even pushing me sometimes, I would push myself.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I have this great idea. I'm going to go 100.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, cool. That was what's next anyways. Like, I knew what he was going to push me to do next.
Yeah.
As his shirt says, good, now do it again. I just got used to it. So now I told him I'm going to give you a shirt, and you don't even have to tell anybody. It's just a point.
Yeah.
But it really, like, swimming in open water when you can't see a thing, that is the biggest fear. So my suggestion to anybody who wants to do a triathlon in open water is get your bearings way ahead of time. Obviously, like Tom said, he told me up front, he was like, I would never do this with anybody else. Like, try to cram all this
so
training.
don't call me a couple weeks before you call me 12 months out, you know.
But I mean, get your bearings in. And there was finally, so we did Tuesday, Thursday in open water, and I think Tom knew I just didn't feel 100%. And I'm one of those, like, if I don't feel 100%, I'm going to psychologically sit there and freak myself out. So
easy to do, yeah.
He actually invited me. You two were going open water swimming
right.
Friday, and he actually invited me to join y'all. And I had thought about it, and then I was like, no, I just need to go get myself right in open water. So that Friday, had my husband up bright and early. I told y'all last podcast, my husband's one of the most supportive people
That's
ever.
fantastic. Yeah.
So bright and early, we drive out to Percy Priest, and he literally just sits on the shore. Just safety measures, obviously.
You never want to go by yourself.
Well, I knew when you and I were out there, other than Mr. looking for gold in the water, like nobody else was out there. So my husband literally sat on the shore and sat there and watched me for about an hour. And I worked on, my freestyle swim, but it was also like, okay, if we get into an poop moment, like, what are you going to do? So it was practicing all the things that Tom had taught me so that I didn't just stop and freeze in the water. I kept progressing and kept moving forward no matter what.
Yeah, and I think, the things that actually we have a friend of ours that posts on Franklin Roadrunners, and his post is forward is a pace.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that. That's great. Forward is a pace.
Yep.
You just need
That's
to
what I said,
continue
we
to go
just need
forward.
to
If it's crawl, walk,
keep
run,
moving.
if it's, doggy paddle, breaststroke, turn upside down and
Yeah.
backstroke your way, just keep progressing forward. That's what you need to do. So,
One of the things that we work on in the pool and in the open water was basically, I call them safety measures, like life-saving measures of treading water, doing breaststroke, doing things. What are you going to do when you need to regroup? Are you going to roll on your back? Or are you going to just, and it's that same thing. I call it relentless forward progress, right?
Yeah.
Keep moving forward. Keep whatever you're doing, catch your breath, gather yourself, but don't stop. Don't stay stationary, because it is a race. There is a time limit. There is things that you need to do, and you want to keep moving forward. The beauty of the Cumberland is that it is a river, and it does have a current.
Yep.
So if you just pop up and you do a little bit of stroke, you're still going to keep moving, which is great. It's kind of nice that way. So we always worked on some of that stuff, and then it was if everything goes to plan, we're good, right? What happens when it doesn't, right? What are we going to do next? And that's the thought process I was trying to get in your head as we were talking about it. It was like, it might not go well. What are you going to do, right? And then if that doesn't work, what are you going to do? Let's think about the situational awareness of what could happen and not to panic. So
It's very true.
I
No
did good.
panicking occurred.
I did good.
you did good.
So now take us to race day.
Yeah. So you're there. You're right before race day.
Show
What are you
up.
thinking to yourself? What's your mindset going into this?
I feel like after dropping my bike Friday, hearing some of the stuff for the newbies and honestly, being with my team, because there are several Team Claiborne members who came into town to watch, like I felt very calm and collected. I actually wasn't really nervous on race day.
Good. That's
Which
fantastic.
I think helps. And I think I purposely did things so that the nervous energy was gone on Saturday versus going into race day with it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's still a little bit of nerves. Obviously, first time doing this.
That's natural.
Yeah. But I don't feel like I was anxious as some other people who were around me.
Isn't that funny?
You can feel it,
Like,
too.
I'm not that
right?
bad.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible to say, but you kind of feel better when other people are feeling worse to a certain extent on that, right? You're like, or you're like, should I be panicking more? Because this person's over here just like going, like.
Right.
Then you start worrying about it.
Yeah.
And it was nice, though, because I was with a whole, so the
You
way
had
they,
a crew. You had a crew with you.
Oh, I did. Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
awesome.
So, but even like, we can get into that because that is one of my biggest things about this is you need a support system. But waiting on the dock, because you wait there for forever and ever.
Yeah.
So they set it up by time categories, and I was like, I'm not labeling myself. Like, I'll just go towards the end, and it is what it is. I was with 4 other people who were this was their first triathlon. And so that was really nice because the 30 minutes we sat there, we were all talking.
Yeah.
Which was nice. And with swimming being where I felt like I struggled the most, especially because I chose to, be at the end of the dock. By the time I jumped into the water, there were so many more people around me at that point. Like the Olympic swimmers had all made their way up, but it was kind of just sitting there like, don't get nervous, don't freak out. Like the things that Tom taught me, like just keep moving.
Yeah.
But it was nice, like being able to meet some newbies who were also there feeling the same.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't feel like overly anxious, but I think we all kind of felt the same jumping into that water.
Yeah.
When you're jumping off a perfectly good dock into the water, then you're just kind of like...
With everyone else chopping around.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did the swim portion go?
It went well.
Good.
Didn't have a freak out moment. I kept telling Tom I knew I was just going to end up doing backstroke. Never once rolled on my back.
Yeah.
It was a mixture of freestyle swim and breaststroke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yeah.
Last race that I did there, I did freestyle stroke and a little bit of breaststroke because I had the same thing.
Well, and the breaststroke came in because, like I said, like by the time I jumped in, there was still a bunch of, sprints, people jumping off, but then the Olympic had made it, and it like all of a sudden started feeling really crowded when you made that slight
You were
turn.
in a pocket of a lot of people, and like for people who don't know the race, the Olympic distance athletes get on a perfectly good boat and go upriver a little bit further, and they jump off that perfectly good boat, and they swim down, and the sprint distance actually starts off of a dock that's a little closer. So the Olympic distance eventually catches up to the faster Olympic racers catch up to the sprint distance racers, and then you have a whole cluster of people going down the side of the river, which is kind of
And there's
fun.
the irony, right? You have folks that are waiting on the sprint because they're not very good swimmers getting caught with guys that are a minute are just like doing a minute 20.
Yeah, but the beauty
your
of this race, the thing that I liked about the swim portion of it was that there's slight banking on the inside portion of it. So if you really were one of those swimmers that were challenged and having an issue, like you could get to a point, you get past the dock, and you get about halfway, you can stand up. You can come close to shore and basically, stand up, catch your breath, and get back in there and go again. And of course, they did a great job with a lot of the kayakers out there. And I saw a few people were hanging on the front end of the kayak to guide themselves and then heading off, being able to do that. You didn't have to do any of that, which is awesome. You sat right out in the middle where the current was better, and you pushed your way on down. And it was great. You just kept going.
Man. Must be that really good swim coach.
That's
taught me so much.
That's good.
No, but it was like sitting on the dock and seeing people who just jumped off already grabbing the dock, and I was like, oh, poor thing. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean,
go.
I think what's interesting is And what I love about talking to you is there's a mentality there of, yeah, it's scary. Yeah, I may not know it, but I'm just going to continue to push through. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, including myself, by the way, a lot of what happens, I think, with water is it's a mental, you psych yourself out mentally, right? Mm-hmm. And because you're not, most of your body's in the water. It's not like on a bike where you can look around and see. It's not like on the run where you can kind of see what's going on. You're kind of isolated by yourself. You hear a lot of splashing around you. You don't know if you're making progress or how you're doing, and things become overwhelming. And so the fact that you're able to just be able to say, I know my capability. I know what I need to do if something goes wrong, and I'm just going to kind of push forward. That's a huge monumental sort of mental hurdle you jumped. It's not just a physical, hey, I finished the swim. It's you took something 6 weeks prior where you had an oh shit moment, right? Yeah. And you're like, some people are like, well, okay, this is bigger than me. I shouldn't have done this. Now what I'm going to do, I'll do a duathlon. I won't do the triathlon or something like that. Let me guess, you thought about that.
Crossed my mind.
It's like, well, we just maybe they'll cancel this one.
Yeah. So I think pushing through that is a big deal. I mean, that's something irrespective of what the time or whatever you did.
And I want to say that stepping up to the line is a big deal as well. Had you not completed the swim, it wouldn't have been for lack of trying, and that would have been fine. Right? That's still okay. That's perfectly fine. So you didn't complete the goal that you were looking for. Don't let that stop you from attempting it, right? Mm-hmm. Getting out there and actually getting off the couch, making the effort, putting in the time and work. And then should you fail, whatever the word fail means to you, so what?
Exactly.
Get back up and do it again, right?
Yep.
Or go, it's not for me, and walk away from it. It's fine, but you gave it the effort and you went through it. You were able to go through and push through and complete the whole thing, which was fantastic. I mean, so.
Yeah. All right, now that we're out of the water,
we're out of the water.
We're out of the water.
So you're coming off, you're going up the ramp, you're like, what was it like, oh, thank God, or, dry land, like.
It kind of was. It really was like, I actually did that. Because that was my biggest thing, like you were saying, like, I just, like, I didn't want to put a time cap on myself. I just wanted to finish. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was my main goal. And that's why I think I was so successful this first time.
Yeah.
And that's how anyone's first try should be. Yeah. It should be to get through and learn the process. You can practice it all you want, but until you get to a point where you put all three together on race day, it's like, oh, I could have done this different. I could have done that. I understand this flow better, and then you can go back, and then you can set some times. Like set a baseline and then go from there.
Okay.
So out of the water.
On the bike.
Up a steep hill.
Up a steep. No, you got to, right?
Yeah,
we're not going to leave out that steep hill.
That steep hill was
that
legit,
was a very
right?
steep hill
that
we had
it's
to
switchbacks,
run up.
You can't go straight up it. You have to switch back
they
up.
Zigzag.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, that way you don't fall.
Yeah.
I was really worried because Tom had told me, like, when you come out, your adrenaline's going, you may feel like you are drunk. Like, so just get your bearings. I think I did that. I think I walked a little bit and then I took off. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we're sponsored by Comcast.
Yeah, but one other thing that I had you do was we did a transition clinic for the beat team.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that I was doing the transition clinics is after we walked through the whole process and actually run through it once. Then we have you do a whole bunch of jumping jacks. We didn't do burpees, but we did jumping jacks. And sometimes we'll spray you down with water, too. Make you spin around with your eyes closed and get really dizzy, and then go. Yeah. Like hammer off, because that's sort of how you're going to feel. I've done it more drastic, where your head's on a baseball bat and you're really spinning and you're almost going to puke. And it's like, that's what it feels like coming out of the water.
Were you just trying to be nice to me then?
I was trying not to scare you away completely, because that was only a couple weeks before the race. So we were trying to get through all of that,
too. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks before the race.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, so you went through the zigzag, got on the bike. Did every transition turn out as nice and clean? Was it?
Transition did go pretty well. The only thing I probably would have done differently is I didn't probably dry myself off as well as I could have. So by the time I sat on my bike, all that water went down into my shoes.
Nice. Yeah.
But really, I was just focused on, the setup and learning like my this. So as soon as I got into transition, I'm like, glasses, helmet, shoes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I do head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I literally sing that
toes,
in my
yeah.
head. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. So it's like helmet, glasses,
Love it, yeah.
Yes.
socks and shoes. It's
it.
kind of,
That was it.
Yeah.
So that is what Tom was like, this is how you need to do it.
yep.
And all week I practiced it. Like literally everything was sitting on my dining room table. I was like, glasses, helmet, socks, shoes.
Yeah.
Triathletes are an OCD group
Totally.
of people. Are
We're
they not?
process-oriented people. If you're
Absolutely.
in operations of any kind, you
Yeah.
love triathlon because it's a process,
It's a
right?
process.
And it has to go, and then you can make it more efficient.
Yep.
Then you lose the socks, and you realize why on the shorter distance races, all of that water dumps down,
Yeah.
and you just go, oh, screw the socks on the bike. I'll just put them on for the run.
Yeah, there you go. I still like socks. So you're on the bike.
Thank you.
I love socks.
I like socks,
Love socks.
but I probably should have dried myself off a little bit more because then I was like, should I just change my socks? At this
Well, it's kind of funny how
Well, then you
You
get the
know-
merino wool ones that actually pull away
Pull
the
away, yeah.
water. So you find the socks that work for what you're doing. It's a process.
yeah, and what's funny is what you would normally do during a train effort, like, oh my gosh, I'm wet, so you'd stop and you dry yourself off, and then during a race, it's like you got snot coming out.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
it's
care.
just-
It's just like I'll deal
The
with it later.
saltwater swims
Yeah,
are brutal because
exactly.
it's complete nasal drain, and
And
as
you're
you're on the
like,
bike,
you know,
and if you're in aero position, there's no stopping it.
Yeah, so
and you're
it's-
just out there, and we don't talk about this much, but it just drains
Yeah,
out. You're just
snot
like
rockets,
whatever.
you don't care.
That's why you
Yeah.
clean your bike well after.
Exactly. So it's like, look, I just got to finish the race. I'll clean up later.
Yeah.
So you're on the bike. How you hopefully you left that transition in a good orderly fashion. You didn't
I
try
did.
to blast it right at the beginning.
No. I will say, thanks to, Tom's transition clinic, he was like, there's going to be a line where you can mount your bike. Go further. And I literally was crossed that line and everybody stopped. And I'm like, what are you doing?
It drives me crazy.
I can't move forward. So I zigzagged through and then hopped on my bike.
That was it.
There you go.
But I'm like, that's just rude.
Yes.
Don't be rude.
Everyone queues up nicely behind and waits. And you're like, you do realize it's a race, right?
Yeah.
There's a time. But yeah, just keep going.
And it was like a line of people mounting their bikes right there. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
that's the line.
Yep.
They put a line. That's the line.
It has to be here.
So halfway through the bike, you're feeling pretty good. Was it longer than you expected? Was it the turnaround? I think it's an out and back, right? It's a
It is.
fairly lumpy, not lumpy, but it's got a few.
It's got some rollers.
Rollers, right?
Ellington is a little sneaky.
Yeah.
But I was forewarned about that, and like I said, I drove it. So, my husband drove it, and I sat in the car, and
Yeah,
I was
took
like, okay,
copious notes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it really wasn't that bad. The bike is where kind of the sun was really starting to beam, and it was getting a little toasty, but the bike was great, and I knew the mileage going into it, so that's ultimately the last 2 weeks. That's the mileage I was cycling every day.
Okay. So
Well, every
pretty
other day.
uneventful in a good way.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you're into T2 transition. Sun's out now. Full force. That
Got
run
socks
course.
full of water.
Socks full of water. And it's not cold water now.
And no, that's when I was like, do I waste 30 seconds and change my socks? But I was like, nope. Just going to go for it.
So, and you've been, like you said, you did a half marathon before. So a
Mm-hmm.
5K was going to be something that is well within your wheelhouse. But you just got out of the water, the dizzy, the T1, you just got off a bike. There's one thing to run a 5K. There's a completely different thing to run a 5K after you've done two other disciplines. How did you feel as you started the run? Was it like,
Miserable.
is this where you went, oh crap, triathlons are real? Or
Yeah.
So I did not practice running much
Yeah.
in my training because I was like, I've done a 15K, I've done a half,
Yeah.
I've done all these 5Ks. Like, I'm not going to focus on that. And Tom kept telling me, like, days you're on your bike, as soon as you get off, you at least need to run a little bit so your legs get used to it. And I did not do that enough.
yeah.
So I got off the bike. So my last 5K time was like 34 minutes. I did this one in like 44 minutes.
yeah.
Well, it's not a, it
It's a
is
different animal.
direct sun, concrete,
Yeah.
buildings
There's
all around.
not a lot of shade on
no
this
shade
course.
whatsoever.
Oh,
At
there
all,
was
right?
no
There's
shade at
zippo,
all.
yeah.
You have
And-
an overpass, and that's it. I think.
And we had relatively good weather that weekend, but that was Sunday. Saturday was perfect. Sunday the humidity was kicking up and the temperature was kicking up. We were going into a huge heat spell and humidity spell, and that was Yeah, it was starting to take its toll on people.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
mean, you're in a bowl of concrete. Is basically
Yes.
what
It's
it's
just
like.
the radiating heat is something.
So
Yeah.
you get to the turnaround, you're thinking, thank God I'm at the turnaround.
Yeah.
It's like you were in my mind.
Like I've done this before.
Yeah.
right? Like, thank you, Jesus. Turn around. All I have to do is just bring it home. And you brought it home. You saw the finish line. What are your thoughts when you saw that?
I ran my booty off when I saw that finish line. And I'm not going to lie. Part of that 5K, I walked because my whole body was just like,
Sure.
no ma'am, no ma'am.
Yeah.
But what's really cool during the run is because it was my first triathlon, Team Magic gives you green bands to like other athletes can shout you out. And it was really cool on the run. There are other runners who are like, let's go 7:57 and like shouting me out. I was like, okay, I can finish this. So like that gave me life to keep going.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really cool about any community. Runners do the same thing. Triathletes do the same thing. If you know somebody that's doing something cool, if they're, like you said, the green band, I think it signifies that this is your first one. That's what the green band's for, right? And the community is cheering you on. Everybody. They don't care about your time, your age, whatever. They want to see people succeed and whatever that means. But it's like, that's the funnest thing. Like, you got this.
There was someone that came over from, I've heard it on a couple of occasions now, but there was one athlete that came across from cycling into triathlon. And he said he's in the race and he's going along and he passes somebody on the bike and it was the weirdest thing that they cheered him on.
Yeah.
And he was just like, but I'm racing you. What? And they're like, go get him. All right. And he was like, that was the hardest thing that they had to deal with because they weren't used to that.
Yeah.
And cycling and crit racing, any of that type stuff, they're just kind of like, it's dog eat dog, right? Let's go out there. In triathlon, I've been past people where I've passed them on the hills and they've passed me on the downhills and we just keep cheering each other on. It was like, oh, there's no more hills. I'll see you later. Bye.
Right.
It's like, and that's what I love about the sport.
Yeah,
It's
and
like the community is.
Yeah,
is
I
very
used to
welcome.
race road races, did criteriums, did time trials, and the whole mentality is I'm going to crush you. I'm not going to just crush you. I'm going to rip your skull off. I'm going to drink the victory
and then
in
take
your
soul.
skull. Yeah, exactly.
Put it in my
It's just
pocket
like-
and sit on it.
Because literally during a race, if you're doing like you would do a 50-mile road race, and you would do multiple loops, and on the last loop, you're trying to determine whether the person next to you has anything left.
Yeah.
And so you'd look at him, and you would be the most calm. I mean, you're just dying, right? But you'd look at him and go, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And they would look at you like, "Yeah, I'm doing good." Like, okay. And then you turn the other way and go, because at the end it's going to be a sprint, and when you beat them, it's like that Euro trash sort of cycling thing. It's like, I crushed you, I own you, right? And then you move to triathlon, everyone's like, great job. You're like, what? Wait, what? Yeah, exactly.
Good work.
Good work. Yeah. And you're like, what are you talking about? Stop that. Stop that. I don't want to be nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a neat community, right? It's a neat. So
It
you got
is.
done. Your squad, your crew, everyone's there.
And
What are
your
you
crew
thinking?
was following you around because we were running down the riverside cheering you on. Like all of a sudden, I found all your peeps. We found you, and there's like a dozen people standing there screaming at one person out of like 100 in the water. Go Abby! Go Abby! You got this! And everyone was just kind of looking at us like wow, she's got a lot of people here.
It's Team Abby. So it takes a village.
I do. I had a very supportive crew. So I was fortunate to have Kenny and Sandy Claiborne come down from Kentucky. Well, back it up. Josh, who is part of Team Claiborne, also, as soon as he knew I signed up for this race, joined. And he did the Olympic distance.
that's
So
right. Yeah.
it was great to have him. Like, obviously, he doesn't live here, but we would chat back and forth about training and all. And then he stayed with me at my house with Aaron and I. So it was kind of nice because I had somebody, because obviously Aaron sees the work I'm doing, but he's not experiencing it. So it was nice those last few days up into the race, like having Josh there, so like we could calm each other's nerves when
It's good to go with it
anxiousness
with
got
somebody.
there. But so I had Kenny and Sandy Claiborne come down. I had the Brewers, is another couple on Team Claiborne, come down. I had some of my best friends. So Nicole Sanchez, who, if y'all remember, is the one who got me all started on this whole Team Claiborne fitness journey. one of my best friends, Tina, was there. My husband was there. My niece was there. My bosses were there.
Wow.
My dad was there.
I'm telling you, it was.
I show up to an Ironman and I got nothing. Right?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they were all there to support me.
That's awesome.
So it was really awesome. And this is going to sound like such a child thing, but having my dad and my stepmom there really meant the world to me.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing something that's like you said, this is completely outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
And I know you've done stuff outside your comfort zone, but I mean, water can be a scary thing, right? You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind
Water
of the biggest.
can be a very scary
Yeah.
thing.
So, and to your point, you're not seeing anything. You don't know what's going on. So, conquering that, I think, is and having a support system to be able to do that is fantastic.
Yeah.
So you had November when you said, I'm going to do this thing. And then you went through the training, you went through all this sort of stuff. You get across the line. Was it what you thought it was going to be? Was it harder? Was it, when you look back on it, was it, yeah, this is the challenge I want to do. I'm really glad I did that. Or that was fun. So great.
Moving
That's
on.
cute.
Exactly.
That's cute. Well, that's cute. Now I'm done.
Yeah.
No, I literally ran through that line, and as soon as I turned the corner, like, fell to my knees.
Yeah.
I was like, holy bananas, that's over with.
Yeah.
And then comes the parade of supporters. My friend, my best friend Nicole, like literally skipping over to me, like enjoying. I'm like, you're moving too much.
Yeah.
Please stop doing that.
Stop.
Yeah.
Quiet place.
She was super excited for me though, so it was 100% out of support. But I literally was like trying, just not like holding back the tears, because it is like once you say you're gonna do something and then you conquer it, there's just such an overwhelming feeling.
Oh yeah, it's emotional.
But
Big
then
time.
it's like that's kind of that day, was in the whole excitement of it, and then it became the what's next.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest, I'm still on the what's next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a very real thing that they talk about when you do big races like that, and then afterwards you have that sort of you're done training, you're done. There's
It's post race letdown or
post race depression, where you're
depression
like,
kind of thing. It's like
you've been spending months defining yourself on workouts, and everything was structured and everything was great. All the mental readiness to get ready, the excitement, the nervousness, everything else. You do the big thing, and then 2 days later you're sitting around going, well, okay, I don't need to be in the water. Yeah.
Well, it's
you
funny
sort of bob
because
around.
my husband Sunday night basically said that same thing. He was like, "Do you have it's okay? So it's over. Like, do you have that like depression now that like?"
yeah.
And I was like, "No." But then literally, I spent the next week like. I told Kenny I felt like a bubble just flying around.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm very goal-oriented. I'm very driven. I need things to accomplish, and I don't always know how to just be. Like, I feel like you two definitely can probably understand.
Oh, totally.
It sucks,
my whole
actually.
life. Yeah, it's rough.
And so Kenny and I actually this week, I sent him my usual check-in, and he was like, I think we need to talk. And he was like, you sound like a damsel in distress. I'm like, but I'm really not. It's just kind of like, I feel like I need big goals, and I probably really don't. But like psychologically in my head, that's where it's like, I need something to work towards.
Yeah, and there's not. I mean, I think you and I are the same in that way, right? I say I need stuff that slightly scares the shit out of me in order to get up in the morning. Like, there's something that's got to force me to like. If it's like, oh, I just want to feel better about myself, or oh, I want to be in better shape, it's easy to skip stuff. If I've got a race in 3 weeks, and if I don't get my butt out of bed and into the pool, that race is going to be not fun. So if there's not something there for me, I have to do that. I found out I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with knowing that that's just how I operate, that I need something to scare the crap out of myself in order to do something. And it's okay to be that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's an okay. It doesn't have to be huge every time, but at least something that...
It's taking all of that energy, like the type A energy that we have going through, and just being able to focus it a little bit. Like, we're just pointing the beam a little bit instead of having it scatter all over the place. I think the biggest thing to take away from this is don't let those goals define you. Like that's where we get lost, and I think that's where people have challenges later on because they spend their whole life doing this and they're focused on these things, and that's what they define themselves on, whether they're a triathlete or wherever it is, and they get lost on that. And then you stay on that because then when you don't have that big goal, you're lost. You're lost. Like it falls off a cliff type of thing. And if you can't find that next goal to scare you and to go through with that, maybe you're...
So don't do what I'm doing.
No. But you don't define yourself as that goal. Right, that's the point to take away. Keep having those goals, have them. Maybe push them out a little bit further. Maybe stretch that instead of going through. I used to have a 3-year goal. Every year, I created a new 3-year goal while I was completing the goal from 3 years ago, while I was working on the goal for the next year that was 2 years from back, and I would go through that thing. So I spent most of my life like really hitting myself hard for a long period of time, and every year I was accomplishing maybe 2 really big goals and was not enjoying them. Like I wasn't taking the time to go back and really think about what I accomplished, how I did it, thank the people who worked with me, who helped me, my community, go through that, because I crossed the finish line and I was already on to, like, I'm 2 years into this goal, and I'm 1 year into the 3-year goal, and I'm already 3 years into the 3-year goal, and it's like, and it's nonstop. Yeah,
that's crazy, dude.
And it's,
I was about to say,
and it's not healthy.
You've already lost me.
It's not healthy, and I struggled with that. I struggled with that when I tried to slow down and get off the bus, basically.
Right.
And it was a hard time for me to make that change and get through that. So I think that's the thing to think about. It's okay to have that goal and to be driven that way and kind of go through. Give yourself a little bit of space.
Yep.
Sit back and think about it. Don't jump on to the next one right away. Enjoy what you accomplished. Really think about, go through what you did to get through it, how you dealt with it, and then just appreciate the effort and the accomplishment itself. And then start to think about, okay, what do we want to do next? Maybe slow the pace down. That's my gift to everybody is that, like, I didn't.
Yeah.
And it was rough. So it's one of those things where I'm still doing that, but I'm a little bit rudderless at one point and getting through some stuff and trying to figure out how I want to accomplish these next big goals. And I'm trying to pace them out a little bit more. That's all I could say.
So for one of the things I think, and I believe you are our top downloaded podcast, by the way. So
What?
I think
congratulations.
so, yeah.
So, and I think the reason why is because I think a lot of people see themselves in you, right? And a lot of people are looking at ways in which to be motivated. And I think you are very motivational in the fact that what we've been saying is that you look at something difficult and say, okay, how am I going to get through it? Rather than it's difficult, I'm not going to do it. It's how do I get through it? So for those folks out there that you've now kind of said, okay, triathlon is a thing I did. If they're have that little voice in their head, if they were where you were in November, what would you let them know about? Just get up and start doing it. What's the sign up for something first? What would be your sort of way in which you would recommend they go about it?
I would definitely say get up and get doing it. Like, if you have that thought to do something, and even if it, as we've said, scares the shit out of you, if the thought crosses your mind, it means you're actively thinking about it. And it doesn't mean you have to sign up right then and there. Like, as we discussed, I didn't sign up for a triathlon until 3 or 4 months later. But get up and give it a try. Especially with a triathlon, there's so much that's needed for it, and you've got to prepare yourself for that. But I would say try out each of the sports first, see where your comfort level is, see, what you can do on your own. And then one of the best things I did was reach out to Tom. So if you need the assistance, if you need the help, if you need a coach, don't wait too long and do that. Because it's like, I probably in my head felt not let down because I couldn't figure it out on my own, but just very frustrated. And I probably waited way too long and let the frustration build to the point I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, and I think that's an incredibly important thing to think about is you can only do so much at some point. I mean, I finished Ironman competitions and half Ironmans, and I still went to Tom for swim because even though I was doing the distance, I was doing it the hard way, I guess would be the best way to say it. I was in the water. I wasn't slipping in the water. I was acting like a barge, and it was killing my shoulder. And I was, so my form was using shoulders rather than lats. And so I'd get out of the water, and yeah, I finished it, but I was a wreck when I got out. There's being able to get somebody to help you understand just simple stuff. And it doesn't have to be a full commitment of, like I'm going to hire a coach at, and they're going to monitor me 2 days a week and that kind of thing. It just can be, like, to your point, whatever your comfort level is, get some course correction, get somebody that can look at you independently in a third party sort of way and say, okay, here's the things you need to work on. Let's work on those. It just makes for a better experience.
It does.
Because that way you can pull that kind of nervousness out of your mind and work on the other things.
And don't post up on forums where you get 1,000 random answers all over the map, where then it just makes it more anxiety ridden.
That is very true.
Find a trusted source.
I joined Triathlon for Beginners on Facebook. And just reading these comments, I was like, I'm not ever going to post here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when I was getting ready for Ironman California, there is a Facebook post specifically for Ironman California that people are on. And there was this giant conversation about E. coli out, and it was absolutely, everyone spun themselves around on this, like, oh my gosh, the encampments for the homeless community. There's a lot of homeless camps, near the river, and they're going to the bathroom, and there's a huge E. coli. It was never an issue, but the community went online, kind of spun itself around. So start talking to people who actually know something
right
about what's going on, right? Yeah. Talk to folks. So I think there's also a second thing that, especially I think when you got to the open water, there's an approach that you can go at, which is, okay, I'm scared of something, I'm going to do everything I can to avoid it, or I'm scared of something and I need to figure out sort of how to be unscared. Was that something that, have you been doing that? It seems like through your 75 hard and through your half marathon training is, you don't seem to let that slow you down. Is that a mindset that was relatively new, or is that something you developed recently, or is that just something you've always been sort of with? And how would you talk to folks that would go to the water, look around and go, yep, I'm done.
It's not anything that's new. I'm actually a very competitive person, which probably is not healthy.
Yeah.
I get that from my family. But if I would say I'm very true to my word. So if I say I'm going to do something, no matter if it's business, sports, fitness, no matter what it is, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean if I tell Tom I'm going to do something. It's more like if I tell myself I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I mean, yes, if I tell Tom I'm going to do something, I would do it. But it's more of having that, again, I feel like I said this last time, the conversations with yourself to get over those fears and to conquer it. I mean, you can do anything you set your mind to. Mm. A lot of it is your mind will talk you out of it.
Exactly.
So it's learning how to get over that challenge to where you're like, I can do a triathlon. Where are my challenges and how do I break through those challenges? Mm.
What's the saying? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you are correct.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's, our conversation on the last program, like you said, and the conversation on this program is you're physically able to do things. Mm-hmm. And you've shown that. And so what stops you is sort of when it gets hard, your mind can do one of two things. Say, well, this is too hard, I guess I'm done. Or this is hard, I got to figure out how to make it less hard.
100%. Everything we do, in life is hard. You just have to keep progressing and you have to keep challenging yourself. Mm. And don't let your mind tell you you can't. We all can do something if we set our mind to it. It's just getting over that fear, getting over, the mental angst you have with yourself about it.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, exclusive here first.
You're not doing this again to me.
Okay. You have something floating in your head.
Yeah.
You haven't said it out loud yet.
Actually, the only thing floating in my head was I was like, what do I do now? Maybe I'll do another round of 75 hard. And then Tom just said what he said, and I was like, All right, I feel like that was my assurance. I don't really need to do that just to have a goal.
So Tom talked you out of the goal. Oh
No,
my goodness.
but
Tom.
Kenny and I already talked about it earlier this week. He was like, "Why do you want to do 75 hard again?" I'm like, "I feel like I need to be doing something."
Yeah.
And he was like, "But are you just doing it to do it?" And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
probably. He's like,
Yeah.
"Then what's the point of doing it?"
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
you've already done 75 hard. You've already proven
done
to
it a couple
yourself you
times.
can do it.
Right? Did you do it more than once?
I started a second round, but I quit because it was summertime and I was. I had a
but you
friend
did
who
it.
was like,
Yeah.
"Let's go get Mexican and margaritas," and I was like, that really sounds
That's
good.
really good. Yeah.
Well, I think in all seriousness, I think that's what you're saying is absolutely true. That if your heart isn't into it, I mean, if you're just doing it
Yeah.
because you think you should be doing something,
Take
then
the
when
time
it
to
gets
think
hard,
about it.
And
when
that's
it's
why
hard,
I
yeah.
feel like your little, whether you knew it or not, your little statement was like speaking
it.
right to me. Like, why am I gonna put myself through that? Especially because what I told Kenny the other day, it is hot outside in Tennessee.
Oh,
If
it's
y'all
crazy.
do not know.
Yeah.
So do I want to do a second workout outside every day?
Yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then it was like the other day, I didn't get home till 8 o'clock at night. I was exhausted because most days I get up at 5 a.m. or earlier, and it was like, there was no way I was going to do a second workout.
Yeah.
So I think it's just because I know that is a hard challenge, and it's well worth it. But it's like, why do I need to do it again?
But
Yeah,
you
I
want to
think
give
it's
it your
really
all
important.
too. You want to
Right.
give 100% to the next challenge that you do. If you're going to choose one just to have something, and then you're not going to put 100% effort into it, it just doesn't make it worthwhile.
Well, you don't have
and then
your
you
why,
don't feel
right?
good about it.
It's your why that gets you through,
Yes.
right? If you
Yeah.
don't have the why
What's
pretty
your why?
firm,
Yeah.
the hot days when you don't want to do something, then your
Totally.
why goes away.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting when you were going through sort of, the goal and doing a goal or not doing a goal, one of the things also is it doesn't have to be physically taxing or like I've read, I've done this amount and now if I do a greater amount, somehow it's better.
Yeah.
Like it could just be taking on a new interesting thing. For example, I've done marathons, half marathons, done races, but what I've never raced before, never put a bib number on, was a trail run. And I said, well, I know I can do the distance, or it's a 25K trail run. That's highly technical. That's going to take a different set of brain power for me on, okay, how am I going to pay attention to this? What do you do in a trail run that's different than a road race? How am I going to train differently? Not that it's a greater physical challenge for me. It's more of hey, I've never done that before. Those are really cool. Why not go out and try that and see what happens and have fun with something? Like, wow, okay, I'll start running in different areas rather than just concrete. Again, it's not a physical, oh my gosh, and because I've never trail run, I have no expectations what my time is, right? It's not like a road race where I know what my times are before, so therefore I need to be faster. Those are the kind of challenges that can be fun too. It doesn't have to be something where, oh my gosh, I turned myself inside out again. It could just be, hey, I've never
They don't have
done
to
a
get
Tough
bigger,
Mudder
bigger,
before,
bigger,
right?
bigger,
I've never done
Yeah.
I've never done a kayak, race before. I want to try that or something. I don't know. Work with me here.
Yeah. And
Abby's looking at me like,
I
what?
was like, what's a kayak race?
oh my God.
Is there one?
Multi-sport is, actually you can go up to Bend, Oregon, and you can do the pole pedal paddle, where they start on alpine skis and then they jump on cross-country skis and then they jump on a mountain bike and then I think you kayak part of the river and then you finish with a run. It looks fantastic. It absolutely looks fantastic.
It
I
looks
almost signed up for that.
fantastic. Okay.
It's
so when you
it's
signing
silly.
up for
I don't
it?
know. We have to fit that in.
No kidding.
Have to figure that in. I was looking at that. We were looking up in the Bend area at one point, and I tripped across that race, and it was just kind of like, hey, this looks like.
I just stumbled upon it.
Yeah, so I guess my point is your goal doesn't necessarily have to be, and I know we were teasing you offline about Ironman because I sent her an Ironman tattoo. This is what's next for Abby, Ironman tattoo.
I mean, I would definitely love to do a few more like sprints and then get into the Olympic. But for right now, I haven't. So I did turn my one-day membership into a year for
triathlon.
USA Triathlon. So I do have plans to do another one. I don't know when. I have signed up for another half marathon because I haven't ran one since Disney Princess. So I'm doing the Music City. But other than that, like, I think what I've really decided is my goal right now needs to just be like refocusing on me, nutrition. Because I did put on a little weight training for the triathlon because it's taxing to your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even though I was still hitting my macros, that's a lot to put your body through. And most days I was still trying to do burn every day. So it wasn't until like the last.
There's a couple swim sessions where it was like, well, I did cardio this morning. It was like, oh, well, this is really going to suck for you.
Exactly.
Tom was like, can you please stop doing burn and then coming to swim? Like, if you want to do burn, swim, wait a few hours.
Then go do burn.
And then go do
yeah.
burn. Which I started to.
Yeah.
I'm a good student.
You are.
Oh, speaking of good students,
Uh-oh.
here's the question
you
before
were
I
telling us
forget
about
it.
that.
So, Tom,
Not competitive at all, are you?
you've got 2 of your clients here.
Uh-huh.
So the question is,
Oh.
Kenny goes,
geez.
who's the better student?
I'll answer that one for you.
Oh, look,
That's you. Absolutely
technical
you.
issue.
100% you.
Yeah.
I actually texted a couple of friends of mine and I said, Tom's going to fire me. and they're like, what did you do? I said, well, I have a calf issue. And he says, look, I want you to bike on Saturday and Sunday. Don't do a run. Just bike on Saturday and Sunday. And so what did I do? I woke up Saturday, went to Harlem Farm and ran. And about 2.5 miles into it, my calf cramped up, and then I limped my way back. And they're like, why did you do that? I said, I don't know. It felt good at the time. It felt fine. So, yeah, I'll concede that easily. You are 100% better than I am. I am not a good student. I am impetuous.
You're both,
I don't listen.
You both have the same personality type of driven and want to set goals and challenge yourselves and go through. Kenny just goes, occasionally he'll be like, no, I don't want to do that.
Off the beaten track.
and disappears off a different way.
I just don't want to do that.
It's like, no, I'm not feeling that today. Oh, really? Okay.
Well, and that's honestly, I think the biggest challenge I have is, and this is in competitions and everything else, is if it calls for, like, let's say I have a 2-hour bike session, and if I don't feel I can go all the way on that, or like hour and a half, whatever, if I don't feel like I'm going to be really good or compete at that, I'll just stop. Right. Well, I'm going to miss my score. I'm going to miss my time. What does it matter? I'll live to fight another day, and then I'll go to leave. So to me, I have to turn off that competitiveness just with myself. Mm-hmm. If I'm on a bike and I'm averaging just about 20 miles an hour, and I've got another 15 miles to go, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure I average at least 20 miles an hour. And I'll turn myself inside out, even though it's supposed to be a nice, ride to really
he has
get
a
the
big
base
run
build.
right afterwards.
Yeah, right. And try to do a base build, and I'm going to turn myself inside out because I figured, well, if I'm at that number, I can probably be at the other number, and so, and if I don't do it, then I think it's a failure, and so I have a problem with myself of just I wish I had that thing to turn off to say I'm just going to trudge through it. If I have to do a 2-hour run, for example. And if it's an hour run and an hour walk, but I got to get the 2 hours done, I'll do the hour run. And it's like, well, if I'm walking, then I'm not doing the run. So why am I even doing this? Then I'll stop, which is what I need to not do.
Yeah.
So I have a tendency to do that a lot. So it's like, you got to finish the 2 hours because in the race, it's going to be 2 hours and you may have to walk it. But if I start walking, I'm like, well, I'm not going as fast as I'm supposed to be. This isn't what I'm supposed to do. So now I'm just going to be done.
Yeah.
And
So
I just need to stop myself from that. So I'm a terrible student.
you're telling me that my next tattoo should be an Iron Man. I'm telling you that right here on your arm.
Yeah.
What was it we said? Forward progress is still progress.
Yeah.
Forward is a pace.
Forward
Yes,
is a
forward
pace.
is a pace. Can you
Forward
get
is
that
a
tattooed
pace.
on
I'm
your
going to
arm,
have to,
please?
yeah, because
I
that's
think you're going to have to,
Yeah, because
I'm like, or do I need to make you a shirt?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Make sure.
the running joke, I think, for anybody, like when people ask you about like Ironman, like, what's your goal for Ironman? And I'm like, well, I'm finishing is my goal. Like always finishing my goal. And then a half a second in my head, it's like, well, unless I can, I want kind of like a 12 hours. And, it's just like every single time it's like, well, finishing is the goal. But if I go over 6 hours on the bike, I'm a disappointment. Like, so that competitive thing sometimes is a detriment. And that's a part that I'm trying to work on as a good student because I'll simply just, to Tom's point, I'm like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And be like,
Well, I got to say, working with you in the swim last year, that's when we first started working together and was getting the swim going. You were definitely focused on that.
Yeah.
And you were really good because we had to get through a bunch of mental blocks and things on that. So we're sitting in the middle of Percy Priest Lake, just floating, kind of sitting there as we're trying to talk through, like, what is your mindset right now? What are you thinking about? What are you telling yourself? How do we change that narrative to something else? And we would be out there for 5 minutes or more, and then we'd start swimming again, and then we'd stop, and then we'd go through the same process again. So there was a huge hurdles, but you really focused because you wanted it. And you were willing to do what it took to get through that point. So, and then your swim, the process worked, right? And then you trusted the process, and all of a sudden, your swim got better and better and better.
Yeah. So I finished an Ironman, finished a couple of halves, and then I, for some reason, turned into panic attacks in the water. I have no idea why. I just started getting panic attacks. So, even seasoned people,
it happened.
And I regressed back into a panic attack where I would get in the water, and especially during a race, I would be like, there's people around me, and I'm not going fast enough, and then my heart rate would crank up and that kind of thing. So I have to mentally get myself through. And the funny part about it, I'm going to, pardon my French, but we're out there and we're coming back, and it's kind of, we're about 1,000, we go 1,000 out and 1,000 back, and we do that a couple times. And I'm coming back, and I'm getting tired, and we're bobbing in the water, and I'm like, God, I don't know if I can do this. And Tom's like, looks at me, he's like, dude, you're a fucking Iron Man. And I went, yeah, I am. And then I went. Yeah. So it took that, right?
Yeah.
It was like, yeah. So
You've already done this.
I think and that's what I envy about kind of the way that you approach things, right? I look at you as an inspiration because I need to be able to push through those things that are hard and be able to do that and tell myself it's okay to do that, right? I like surrounding myself by people that have that capability to say, I'm willing to put myself out there, and I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I'm going to try it. And if it's hard, it's hard, but let's push through it. So,
I mean, you don't know what you don't know until you give it a try.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then just kind of be able to do it.
Yeah.
Wow, this turned into a Kenny therapy session. Thank you.
It did.
But yeah, you're definitely. So to go back to your question, yes, you're absolutely the better student that I am. I suck as a student.
20 minutes
I've been
later.
through 6 coaches.
Yeah.
I go through a lot of coaches because they're like, I can't impossible. So
I will say, when I signed up, I was like, I just want to finish. But then I had been talking to Kenny Claiborne, because at that time I was still like working with him directly with like nutrition, and that was my main goal, body composition. And I was like, do I want to sign up and do this as like a weight class versus an age group?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the weight class, I think it's Athena, you have to at least weigh 165. And at the time I weighed like 172. And I was like, am I going to lose weight during training? Am I not? And he was like, you just need to do age group. We don't know what your weight's going to be. And then I made the mistake once I finished and looked it up. And had I done Athena, I would have placed third. And I was like, why didn't I do that?
Yeah.
But you know what?
Because that didn't matter, right?
yeah.
The goal was finishing.
The goal was finishing, but then you look
Then you
afterwards
look.
and you're
Finishing
like,
on the podium is
"Man,
always better.
Always better.
how cool would it have been on my first time if I...
Well, and that's a motivation too. I mean,
Oh,
it's, I finished a triathlon. I think we did waterfront, and I finished, and the guy in front of me was 6 seconds in front of me. And when there's 6 seconds, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
6 seconds. Like if I just would have, anyway.
Could have made
So
that.
it's kind of fun.
But cool.
Anyway,
So what's next? What do you got going on now? What's happening with Burn? Anything else we need to cover? We covered a lot. That was a good one.
We have
was a
covered a
good
lot. Personally, what's next? It's just trucking along, learning to get comfortable with not having big, scary goals.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on macros and nutrition, preparing for our Team Claiborne Day at First Form. So once a year, Team Claiborne gets invited to First Form's HQ.
Nice.
So there will be tons of us up there in August. Business-wise, Burn is still offering 7-day trials, and I think you two still both need to come to try Burn.
I have to swim, bike, and run. That's what I have to do.
And he has some strength
Swim, bike, and
workouts
run.
on there
Yeah,
too that
actually
he just
does
ignores.
strength workout. How am I going to do it? I know I need
You
to do
do know how important
I know,
strength
yeah,
is
I do.
to running,
Trust me.
And avoiding
biking, and
injury,
swimming.
I know. My PT's telling me that right now. Like, the reason why your calf hurts,
Yeah.
You don't lift enough weights.
I don't lift enough weights.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, after this, I'm going to go do arm day at Burn.
There
Would
you
you
go.
like
There
to
you go.
join me?
There you go. There you go.
Wow, look at the time.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you have to do something else.
I got a thing with a thing.
The thing and,
I gotta open this business.
yeah, something like that.
People want smoothies.
There you go.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on again
you.
and sharing your story. It was awesome to
Yeah.
work with you. That was fun. That really was.
No, I appreciate you taking on such a project. I am a project.
We're all projects in our own way. We all have our own thing. So thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. If you are just listening, we have a YouTube channel. You can see our beautiful faces. Hopefully, the video is getting a little better as I work with it. But subscribe to the channel. Give us some feedback, thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever it takes. This helps the algorithm get out to more people, and we can expand and get better at this whole thing. So thank you so much. We appreciate everybody. Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you all on the next one.